good morning, good day, and good evening. This is our first English episode. We're in a bit in new waters here. Benjamin, are you feeling stressed?
No, this English is something I love. And yeah, I think it's interesting for our listeners to hear us talking English. So if we're not perfect, don't judge us. English is not our native language.
It's not if. We are not perfect. No need to,
Yeah.
My name is Pavel Tahkovuori, and with me my dear colleague and friend Benjamin Pitkänen. And who do we have as a guest?
We have the Secretary General of the Vegetarian Society of Denmark, Rune-Christoffer Dragsdahl, and you have made great work, and even Vox News named you as one of the top 50 future perfect honorees, and you have been titled as the kind of great vegan or like
so we have someone perfect here.
Plant-based hero, yeah. But please tell us a bit about yourself and your background and everything.
Yeah, thank you so much for inviting me. Great to be here in Helsinki, and it's my first time in Finland. So thank you for inviting me on your podcast.
For sure.
And your show. So actually, I was born into a family where the food served was, vegetarian. So I've never eaten meat in my life.
Ooh.
And still I'm more than 2 meters tall. So that's, if people who are skeptical about plant-based diets, that's usually helpful.
Okay.
And it was not, while I did get milk and eggs when I was a child, it was not like huge quantities. So I firmly believe it was the carrots and the lentils that made me grow tall.
Okay.
Do people want you to test meat when they hear that?
No, I think I'm too old for that. They don't. When I was young, when I was a teenager, there were people who asked about that. But I never really felt the urge. It's not even subconsciously. It's not like if Freud entered my brain, he would see a big longing for this. It's just for me, it's not interesting, not relevant as food. There's so much tasty food from the plant kingdom. And my mother was, by the way, a chef. So I really got a lot of good food.
My God.
And I think that's part of the secret. When you go to India, I've done some field work in India. I'm an anthropologist also by education. And my main conclusion after being there was that while meat consumption may grow a little, it has almost not grown for 20 years, despite huge economic growth. And my conclusion is the main reason is, apart from, you can say, culture, religion, many things, but really the main reason is when you have thousands of delicious vegetarian or vegan dishes, yes, also meat dishes. But when you have so many delicious dishes with mostly plants or fully from plants, then why would you want to? And that's really the thing. So they have such a rich culinary tradition. So I think that's part of the problem, that we simply have too limited knowledge of how much variety you can have. And that's really the challenge here in Scandinavia for many people.
Yeah, I'm oftentimes using India as an example because, many people are like, if we didn't eat meat, humankind couldn't survive. And then I'm like, have you ever thought about the most populous country in the planet called India?
Yes.
They are thriving well. They are not like, so it's funny like that we usually really have this Eurocentric view and think that Europe and what we eat in Denmark or Finland is the only thing that people eat. But then we forget that in most of the world, plants are like the base of food, and then you might eat meat sometimes, but not like every day.
Exactly.
Yeah, so maybe we can start talking about policy. You are like an expert in policy, and maybe you can just explain to our listeners when we talk about plant-based policies, policy work, what does it mean and what kind of policy work have you done?
So first of all, if we really want to change the food system globally, we need governments to do something also. Of course, if each individual did something in the world, we could change it just through individuals, but that's not happening, right? You will have some individuals who show the way, but we also need governments on board. And that's because governments, they can make decisions on what is served in the public kitchens, the public institutions, but the governments can also allocate money, because ultimately we will not have change without money. Someone has to pay for the party. And that's whether it's about farmers, funding for trying to grow new crops, building new food value chains from farmer through processing to the consumer. It's about training the chefs. It's about innovating new products with nice textures and tastes. All of this, it will cost money. So that is one reason why we need governments to pay the bill, but also because governments can make other decisions, of course, about how you regulate things or create environments that are good to develop things, or dietary guidelines, public procurement. But so that is why policy is important, because you can do things at a structural level that is far beyond what we can do as individuals. And then what has happened is really, Denmark is this country which in many countries famous for dairy and pork. So a lot of pigs and a lot of milk. That is what Denmark is famous for agriculturally and food-wise. And so what has really happened is that over the last few years, Denmark, while still investing in animal production, so this is not a paradise. Denmark is still investing in animal production, but we and many other stakeholders managed to inspire the Danish government to allocate funding for plant-based foods. So that has reached now totally 170 million euros. It started with 90 million euros, but then they kept adding more and more funding because they saw that there was so much interest in this. And the first years received so many applications, qualified applications from scientists, from farmers associations, municipalities, NGOs, everyone, educational institutions applying for funding so they can see, wow, there's a need for more money. So now it has reached almost double the initial amount and still with a huge number of applications. And that funding, then together with a national action plan for plant-based foods, which is a government document that outlines why Denmark thinks this is important for the world. That simply says plant-based foods are the future. That's the first sentence in this action plan. And it's signed by a minister from the Farmers' Party who is from a right-wing party.
Wow.
A conventional farmer.
So I guess you have made some kind of history when we look at your achievements that you have been able to do.
Yeah, so I think it's, to be honest, I think I really want to recognize, we mentioned India before, right? And we have to remember there are many countries in this world which are much more plant-based than them, who are actually doing things, who are eating much more plant-based, who have a strong tradition for it. And so I usually say there are maybe 100 countries in this world which are already predominantly plant-based or very plant-based. These are the countries we should learn from. But among those other 100 countries in the world, which do have a very high meat production and meat consumption, among these countries, Denmark is now a front runner trying to help itself and the world move in another direction. So this is the balance. Like, I don't want to offend people who are actually already doing great in other countries. But we also need the countries which have a problem. They need to act. And among those countries, then I think it's really important that we see Denmark now changing an attitude here with support from the farmers, from everyone basically saying, yeah, let's try to do this.
And currently, Denmark is holding the EU presidency. So can you tell about what are the plans with the EU presidency related to the plant-based foods and maybe something in an EU level you are suggesting as a country?
Yeah, so the EU presidency, rotates every 6 months.
Yes.
So every 6 months, there's a new country. So that means there's a limit to what you can actually accomplish. And also, when you have the EU presidency, you're actually supposed to facilitate things for the rest of the countries. So if you do things too fast, or if you push something too hard, the other countries will just say, hey, you're supposed to lead the meetings. You're not supposed to. So the tricky thing is, if you do it the right way, you can use it to create a conversation on some topics. So the way Denmark has used this is to, at the first meeting of all the agricultural ministers, Denmark put this on the table and said, let's discuss this. We think this would be a good idea with an European action plan for plant-based foods. Let's hear, what are you doing in each of your countries? Can we get some best cases? What is each country doing? And then getting some inspiration, and that's it. Because if you really want to make change at European level, that usually takes years. You need to involve the Commission and the Parliament. So this is just a starting conversation to have a friendly conversation between the ministers of all the 27 countries of the EU. So that is one thing, to actually have a constructive, friendly discussion on it. And then number two, the Danish Parliament organized a conference last week in Billund, in the western part of Denmark, where there were approximately 100 attendees from all across Europe. It was really only for national politicians and their advisors. No lobbyists allowed. So the only people who were not politicians or advisors were those who gave a presentation, so a few researchers, for example. So it was really a space for the politicians and their advisors to talk together. And actually, I really like this, because then they don't have to demonstrate anything in front of the voters. They can just actually talk honestly, share things back and forth. And as far as I understand, the vast majority of those coming for that conference were politicians who were just, a little curious about plant-based, but they were definitely not vegans or vegetarians. The vast majority of them were just politicians who were curious to hear about, let's see what's going on in Denmark, let's meet and share knowledge between colleagues. And I want to hear more viewpoints of how it happened. But so far I heard that the people from Finland who visited, which includes people from different parts of the political spectrum, they were actually having a very good experience, it sounds like, the Finnish delegation.
Fantastic.
So that is one example. And then in 5 weeks from now, there'll be a plant food summit in Copenhagen, which we and many others are organizing together with the ministry. And there we are actually trying to invite as many as possible of the people who are might be a little skeptical again, who are hesitant, or to invite a lot of farmers' associations, invite a lot of government officials, because there are plenty of opportunities where vegans and vegetarians can meet and have a safe space. The animal and vegan advocacy summits in different parts of the world, for example, the CARE in Poland, here in Europe.
Yeah.
But we want to be sure that we really get some of the people into the room who are more skeptical or who are a little more mainstream. Yeah. So that is the idea of that summit, to really build a bridge, have a lot of people in the same room who come with different opinions, and they may not agree. There will be disagreements, but we need to allow to have diverse people.
Yeah, and the Plant Food Summit will be hosted October 20 and 21st. And
yes.
I will join there, so it will be fun to see that side of the world, and hopefully many Finnish delegates are also coming.
I think what question I and a lot of our listeners, I think, have is how. A big how.
Yeah.
How do you, when the food culture, food conversation extremely, I think, polarized, we have two big different sides fighting against each other from the trenches, from the other side. And here you tell, people just meeting and being interested. And you said 170 millions being invested in is, how does that happen?
The Danish miracle.
So I think at first I want to say, as I said, I've lived vegetarian my whole life, and I've been eating vegan for the last 10 years. And we had some years ago a lawsuit fighting for the right that there should always be vegan options in public institutions. So I would fight. I've taken the fight into the courts, and we won one lawsuit and lost another one, which we have appealed, related to food in daycare institutions and hospitals. So I would always fight for the right to live as a vegan. I think the tricky part is where when the vegan movement says go vegan, that is of course because when you choose to live as a vegan, it's a beautiful, beautiful choice. You're doing this for the animals. That's the idea, as you know, in veganism. Of course, other people may motivate it with environment or health, but vegan, the roots, it's about animals, right? It's about love for animals. And when you truly feel love for animals and you feel hurt when you see what is going on in the world, it's natural to tell others, like, go vegan, come on guys, go vegan. But a lot of
We've
people...
all been there.
But people can feel that's a pressure to be an identity, to take an entire identity upon you. So I think really part of it is taking the identity. So again, I would always fight for the right to be a vegan. But apart from that, taking the whole identity package out of it and really telling people every meal matters. And that also means every meal matters. That's also true. If you're a vegan, every of those meals really matter. But also acknowledging other people which may only manage to half their meat consumption or have meat once a week. Or, these people, it also matters what they're doing. And really acknowledging that and recognizing that. That has been very, very helpful in the Danish context to acknowledge that and not make it an identity war. Reaching out to farmers, I 7 years ago started inviting myself to agricultural schools and said, I'm from the Vegetarian Society. Maybe I can come and debate with you. And I was clearly very alone there. Imagine being at an agricultural school in a rural area when there are 300 people in the audience who are all young farmers or their parents, and you are really probably the only veggie person in the room. And then being able to be there, be yourself, be authentic. And I think I managed also to. I am who I am. But I think we need to be brave to reach out to these people. And then hopefully give a good impression that actually I like farmers. I think farmers have one of the most important jobs in the world. maybe the most important or the second most important, right? Showing that respect. And I think to give one concrete example, I like to use, I remember one of these debates where there were 300 people in the room, right? Farmers and their parents. And there was a young farmer who asked me, so I'm studying now to become a pig farmer, industrial pig production, industrial pig farmer. Do you want me to change? Should I study something else? And I think for a lot of vegans or vegetarians, the tempting answer could be, yeah.
Sure.
But I didn't answer that. I said, I'm not going to tell you what you should study. If you feel this is the right thing for you, you should keep studying this. What I do think is that at a societal level, we do need more farmers to transition. But I can't say who should do it. That's really your choice. You have to feel into what you're doing. At a societal level, we do need more plant production and less animal production. But I'm not going to tell you. I don't know who your business case, your story. And I think this kind of answer, which is really true, that was no tactical answer. That's what I felt was the right answer. But I think that resonated very well. So that means then the farmers start talking that, who's this guy, the vegetarian guy, and maybe they are not so bad after all. And then you get these things help, I think. So I would say we need more representatives that spend more time in rural areas, meeting people. I know also Benjamin has been reaching out to people from across the political spectrum. And I think really this is important. We need to also to make ourselves vulnerable. If you are there alone with 300 people who might think you're the bad guy, take that chance and then hopefully show them that you are not the bad guy. That is helpful to make some of the farmers relax a bit and trust that maybe there are actually a lot of people, because there are in the vegan movement, there are lots of people who deeply care about food and farming, to show them that we can be allies, at least on part of this, on part of the food system.
And maybe something interesting, we have also quite strong farmers association in Finland, and we have been discussing in this podcast a lot about those issues, or they have kind of breaks on anything plant-based, at least currently. But of course, we can believe that things might change. So how did you find resonance in this kind of farmers associations? Because they have been usually strongholds, kind of trying to keep plant-based away. But I think you have the agreement that you made, the government fund. Yeah. One of the participants was the Farmers Association. So
actually I want to start with because even among farmers there are differences, and farmers also definitely disagree, and there will be some diversity among the farmers about their opinions about this. But I would say let's start with the organic farmers. It's a smaller movement, and in each country it may have a different size, but in Denmark it's around 12%, I think, of the area, or maybe it's a bit more, but around that. In other European countries, it might be even 20-25% that is organic now. But there are a lot of overlaps. There are a lot of consumers who buy organic foods who also buy more plant-based, and vice versa. So really being sure that at least recognizing there is an alliance here. And to give one example, Denmark used to have this day where Set the Cows Free Day. That's when the organic cows get out on grass and they jump and dance around. And the conventional cows, they're kept in the stable all year. Maybe some of them will be let out, but generally the status in Denmark is they're just staying indoors all the time. I don't know, and because it's maybe more industrial, I don't know the situation here in Finland, but how is it? Are the conventional farm cows going on grass here? Or
they do also, yeah.
But the conventional in Denmark, I think it's a bit smaller. The Danish system is so industrialized already, so the conventional ones are rarely getting out. Mm-hmm. So it is the organic ones that get out, and you will jump around happily. So they invite people, can come and see them, and families go there with their children and look how happy the cows are. Yeah. So vegan activists in Denmark have over the years generally chosen that day to make a demonstration. And some organic farmers feel like, okay, so you're demonstrating. We are at least not as bad as the others, and yet you're demonstrating at our event. At least we have the cows out in half of the year, but the other guys keep them in all the time. And then you come here and make the demonstration to us who are at least the better part, or the least bad part of the production system. And this means that some organic farmers really got annoyed and angry about that. But I had this nice conversation with the former CEO of Organic Denmark at that time, when he was then going to debate this on national television live with a vegan activist leader, and they went on television. And what the nice response from the organic farmer was, CEO was, he said, "Yeah, I also used to be an activist when I was younger, so that's okay. I think this may be not the right way. I wouldn't do it if I were you, but I used also to be young." And he was doing it in a friendly and warm way, so trying to tone down the thing. And by the way, he was saying the advice they were giving to the organic farmers was that when they serve coffee to the visitors, they should always have an oat milk as an alternative option there. So they could also give oat milk to the activists.
Okay, keep them happy.
And I think this way of saying the activists are there to make a statement. They are not there really to attack the farmers. They're there because they want to send a message to the families. And I would personally think it would be better to do some demonstration at the conventional farms if you want to do it. But in this case, the organic farmers chose not conflict attitude to this, and I think that was a right move from them. But there's something here that, overall, there are a lot of overlaps between organic movement. They do care. They want more animal welfare. They do want concern about health and environment. So there are overlaps. So the tricky thing is, of course, at the same time, you have organic farmers who insist on having animals. There should be some animals in the system. So in some sense, that is, that's fundamentally opposed to the vegan vision, where you don't abuse any animals. But I still think it's important to recognize that there's probably an 80 or 90% overlap between the values of the vegan movement and the organic farmers, even the organic animal farmers. So because they're still, at least we can say in Denmark on average, the organic animal farmers are much more open to reduce their number of animals and to grow more legumes and to experiment with new plant proteins for humans. They have a more holistic worldview. So I think it's important to identify who can be your allies. And often some of the organic farmers or small farmers who insist on having some animals, but at least they're still some of the natural allies for the plant-based movement. Then the conventional farmers, that's another case then. And in the Danish case, that has really been based upon, as I mentioned, building that trust, that they're feeling like we're not extremists, we're concerned about farming, that we are, we believe that it's an important job, and we believe in innovation and business also, and we want, and we think we are also basically, I've been using the arguments for many years saying, guys, if you insist on having this huge livestock production for the next 40 years, farmers will continue being attacked again and again and again in the public debate for anything from zoonosis to animal welfare to public health to environment, water pollution, and climate change. So if you want to reduce the criticism, you should maybe be open to this, diversify, right? Yeah. You will actually feel less stressful. There'll be younger farmers who will find it more attractive. So I think it's about coming with these arguments in a balanced way. There are farmers who actually want to change. We would still love to see more doing it, but there are some Danish farmers who are now directly saying, there's some inheritance going from father to son and saying, okay, I want to do legumes instead of pigs. So going from conventional pigs to organic legumes.
It's a big change. I think what's interesting is first being imperfect in the food system that you and your team is building is that when you said to the up-and-coming pig farmer that you yourself can do whatever you feel like is important to you, but the system is not, the pig-based system is not what you're building, and also finding the imperfect allies.
Yes.
And I think that's something that quite many vegans, myself previously too, have found difficult to do, because you're feeling like you're losing your values or your goals.
Yeah.
Was it easy to you? Did you find that strategy to be you, in a sense?
Yeah, so I guess, at least for me personally, I think I've always felt like, you need to meet the other human being where they are. And that's the fundamental thing. So for me, it feels natural. And I would also say the kind of people we've attracted who are working for our organization also have that value. There might be still some who come to work for us who can feel that more impatience. And also, I definitely also feel impatient. But I think I've come to the point where I'm mostly impatient about people in very powerful positions who could change things and who are not trying to change things. But the average farmer or the average consumer, I don't want to blame them. So I think it's about recognizing there are some systemic issues here that should be addressed. And if people with power within that system are failing, then I do get angry.
Understandable.
Yeah. So I think anger can definitely be there. It's not very productive necessarily to be angry, but I think there are people who should do more. I do expect more from people with power comes, responsibility. Yeah. So that's my approach. But since there are a lot of people who don't have that power, we should not blame them. We should exactly identify. There are many of the imperfect people who don't have power, but they can help us become more powerful.
Yeah, and they can be supportive to the cause. They can be like, hey, Rune is great. Let's support his cause, and let's not at least like resist the change. Because I think, and maybe you can tell you have this great graph I have seen on your slides. This is it called Gaussian curve? You can tell, because I think that's a great way to kind of say how the change will happen.
Yeah, is it the one with the normal distribution?
Yes,
about
normal
different
distribution. Sorry.
No, and it's my colleague who made a graph once, basically showing, again, from an animal ethical perspective, that's
imperfect.
Everything is imperfect.
Yes.
But if we look at, for example, dietary guidelines or climate goals, then there is, we still need to, as an average, as a society, to really reduce consumption. I'll to give one example. Recently, Danish researchers came with a meat amount that was even lower than the Eat Lancet. The Eat Lancet is the report that has inspired a lot of national dietary guidelines. But the Danish Technical University, I think it was before the summer, came with a calculation saying only 255 grams of meat and only chicken.
How much?
255 grams per week and only chicken. That's really low. That's lower than anything previously.
Yeah.
So they were basically saying, for most people actually vegetarian, but once in a while a bit of chicken. And then so when I saw that study, I felt, wow, not surprising. I'm sure the numbers are like that. But this is also dangerous because this is one of the moments where people will just say, I hate scientists, and now I don't want to listen to scientists any longer. So we managed to get into a very popular evening show on national television, which is seen by 20% of the Danish population, 1 million people. And a short clip with me, just like 1 minute or so, which they displayed, where I got to comment on it. And I said, please remember that these 255 grams is just an average. So if you really, really love meat, you should actually be very happy that there are other people who eat plant-based. And the more you love meat, the more you should help other people to eat more plant-based as possible. Because then on average, we can reach this. Basically saying this average is a scientific thing. This is not a political thing. It's a scientific thing. But if that makes you upset that the science is saying this, then your best choice is to support vegan, plant-based options for as many people as possible most of the time, so you can still have your meat.
And that the double amount. Yes.
And that argument, it's mathematically, it's true, but also psychologically, it works very well for people, because then they're feeling like, okay, maybe I'm one of those people, so I really insist on it. But there are other people who might actually, that's at least my thought, hypothesis, that there are people there who are feeling, okay, maybe I can eat a little less. And then there will be others who eat very plant-based, and they will make it balance up the weight. So allowing for individual diversity there. And the truth is, if this happened, if we manage to shift, so maybe a third of the population lives vegan or vegetarian, a third with a moderate amount, and then a third with a still quite high amount. If that happened, society would look so different than today, because there would be tons of vegan options everywhere, plant-based defaults in so many places. So that would in itself help more people probably. And that would normalize the whole thing. So there will be this tipping point. The problem we're having now is still that so many places don't have proper options. So people feel forced. There's a huge, I think also it's a matter, there's a large number of people who are open to eat more plant-based, but they're still eating meat because that is the default, or that is the easiest option, or that sounds most delicious on the menu. So if we can shift all those people who don't mind eating plant-based, that is the easiest, the lowest hanging fruits, we would say. If we can shift those people first and focus on that. If we focus on convincing the people who really, really love their meat, we are wasting a lot of energy, I think. We need to help those people who are open.
I find that incredibly interesting and inspiring, because I think what's taking this, we have one step forward and then media and social media spins it into they're going to ban meat, and then they're going to ban you from eating meat, and etc. And then you're in a panic and you want to protect your meat with guns or whatever. So I think this disarms any psychological issues some people might have with the change. And change is always difficult. Me and Benjamin just watched a few months ago a video from 90s or 80s where the people were talking about in Finland there was going to be a seat belt.
You get fined if you don't use.
Yeah. So people were angry about that. I want to drive without a seat belt. I have the free will to do so, and well, we know now that
90% plus uses seat belts every day.
And people find it irresponsible or stupid or dangerous to not do that. So I think looking back, change seems to be incredibly fast. But in the moment, it feels slow when you get angry at people who are like, well, I'll eat less meat now and then. And you're like, no, you need to stop. So that doesn't usually help them.
No, and I think the tricky thing is, from an animal ethical perspective, you really feel like you should stop it, or you should reduce suffering as much as possible right now. So that is difficult.
Yes.
You can hear the emotional, you're screaming like, I want to defend this animal that we are treating so horribly. But still, that takes time. But sometimes, it is incremental change. But when you get past a certain point, it'll go faster.
We're talking about psychological issues or defenses. So what would be the counter arguments to the arguments for plant-based action, plant-based innovations that you're arguing for? Something you've heard from perhaps more conservative people or even more liberal who are not that open for plant-based world.
Yeah, so I think there are the arguments that are still, based upon misinformation. There are some people who are about the health aspects or nutrition aspects, and that's simply there's a lack of education, or there's a whole generation of people and health professionals who grew up believing that you need animal protein to survive. And that's an issue still. I think subconsciously that helps prevent people, like even the whole debate on ultra-processed foods. Maybe it hasn't been so bad here in Finland. It sounds like it hasn't. But in the international, in many countries, the skepticism of things that are processed too much. And the crazy thing is that it's framed as a debate about plant-based, while the scientific evidence is very strong on processed animal foods. Yet people are talking about processed plant foods. So there's something completely unfair there with the media as also. But I think it sounds like it has been less of an issue in Finland, and I hope it will continue like that. But it's an issue in Denmark, the United Kingdom, many countries. It has become a challenge, actually. So there's a fundamental misinformation and lack of knowledge on health and nutrition. That is one barrier. But I do still think the largest, as I see, when I remove all the other more or less bullshit arguments, or really, when you go to the core of it, I think the really core argument we eventually reach is the argument that the world wants more meat. Demand is increasing globally. And that has been there as a constant for the last 19 years, that argument. And that is an argument being used to say, like, this is a given. This is we can't stop it. It will happen. So we have to meet the demand. And that is really the core argument, I think, where we still need to win that debate. And then there are various counter-arguments. But of course, one counter-argument is simply that it's not physically possible to meet that demand. That is not, well, if we destroy all forests in the world, but then there will be no it's not possible, right? So there are actually planetary boundaries here. Yeah. And so we go into the whole thing, with feed, how much feed do you need to put into the animals, the conversion ratio. That is still a fundamental teaching that many people are forgetting and not really understanding. So right now, with the food prices are rising in many countries, and in Europe also, and in Denmark, and people are complaining, especially about meat prices have gone up a lot. So then you have the proposal by some parties saying we have to increase our meat production again to get the meat prices fall down again.
We had the same, yeah.
And then we've been thinking about, okay, there's something education here. We're trying to find a way how to draw this in a graphic way or to explain it in a very, very simple way so everyone can understand it. So we're still working on this. How can we address this? But fundamentally, the thing is, as you know, since we need more land, if you increase meat production, you will need more land and more feed. And there's already competition over it. The main reason we hear now, I think most experts are saying the main reason why meat prices are going up is because globally the meat demand has been rising. The middle class is increasing globally. That is exactly the argument we've heard for some decades, that demand will increase, so let's meet the demand. But clearly now we are reaching a point where too many people in the world want too much meat. And that means, like, even if you try to increase that meat production, from where will you increase it except from cell-based or from plant-based meat? How will you meet that demand through live animals which need to eat a lot of feed? Because if, let's say, Denmark increases its meat production, we will need to get that feed from somewhere. And that extra feed will be in competition with the existing feed and all the existing grains and legumes and vegetables for the entire world. So Denmark will basically just push the prices further up if we increase meat production. And that's a fundamental thing they're not understanding. Like, you can get to a point where the food system is taking up so much of the world, and with climate events, and, unless you start cutting down forests somewhere, you cannot increase meat production. That will just cause the prices to go even further up because there's just more competition. There's something very basic in that argument that I think is worth exploring and trying to find out how do we explain that very well to people, to actually say, because it is so resource intensive, we cannot meet the demand. It's not possible to meet the demand. I think getting that message across again and again is something we need to work on still, because that's something people are having this idea that, we can meet the demand somehow.
Yeah.
But we can through plant-based meat, through fermentation-based, cell-based.
We will wait for your solution when you find, and we will share it to the world. I hope.
Or someone can draw it and send it to me, please. We need a nice way of portraying this in a nice way, so it's easy
in
to
Finland,
understand.
the debate is often that if we stop meat production here, because it's always like they think that, okay, the vegans want to just stop meat production, it will go like this and only foreign meat will come. So usually I feel at least that many of the arguments, quote unquote, are kind of childish, and they are not even meant to be. But people take it seriously when you hear the same arguments, which are like non-arguments, but you are bringing so much soy, and even though like in Finland 90% of the soy goes to animal feed.
Exactly.
So I think
exactly
politicians are either misinformed or they are just like telling lies that they know that aren't actually factual. But of course the people want to hear comforting thoughts that if I eat Danish or Finnish meat, I'm making actually a good choice and supporting our planet and farmers. But I guess people forget that plant-based production is also supporting farmers. You can be vegan and support our farmers. So but maybe we have had now a lot of policy work. I really enjoyed, we met this year in the US and we were having a nice discussion about a really different topic, but related to veganism. Can you tell about your quite interesting media campaign related to men's erections? Nobody expected this.
What a turn.
But you have to use that in the teaser for this.
For sure.
In this podcast, we are talking about erections. Okay.
No, but I think it's all borrowed. The Game Changers, this documentary, which is now 7 years old, and apparently quite many younger people haven't seen it yet.
No.
They have to see it. This is really a have to see if you're a vegan or plant-based. It was on Netflix, but they just removed it recently. So I'm not sure why, but you can probably find it somewhere else on the web. This is about sports stars. Arnold Schwarzenegger is also there.
Yes.
And it's a great one. And I think that did a lot. And I think we just need that movie to be seen by every citizen in the world. That should help a bit. It's been seen by 100 million. So if we can get, or 200 million maybe, but if we can increase it to 1 or 2 billion, that would be, So there is, but in that movie, there's a scene where they do an experiment where they actually give 3 young males who are athletes, they get
testosterone.
One evening they get this, meal with I think even organic chicken, free-range beef, and like quality meat, pork, beef, and chicken in a fajita, a small burrito. So they eat that one evening for dinner, and the next evening they eat just a plant-based version, but exactly the same ingredients for everything else. And then they measure their erection by night, and there's a huge difference. So when we saw that, we felt, and by the way, it's just a small experiment, not real science.
Yes.
But the guy who is supervising that, he is the lead urologist of the American Medical Association. Yes. He wrote, as I said, the penis book. So he is
my
the
favorite.
Our favorite.
Exactly. So he's the expert in the US on penises.
And
so
penis health.
Yeah, penis health. Yeah. He is the guy supervising it. So the people who are saying, this is not scientific, or I don't trust it, well, they chose the most credible person you could. So this is, while it's just a small experiment, the biochemical science behind it is correct. I asked a Danish heart specialist, heart. This is about heart health fundamentally, because it's about the veins, the blood streams in the body. When you eat a lot of saturated fat, it slows down, it basically thickens your arteries, and that's what you give you over the time. You'll get. Usually they say men who get past 40, 50 years who get slightly some problems with their erection, that's a pre-warning they will actually get heart disease later, because that is the most tiny blood vessel in your body. So any problem there will be a warning of things happening in your larger blood vessels later on. So again, I think that argument should just be told and repeated again and again and again to all men in the world.
The penis argument. This is like a new arsenal for people to take from this podcast.
Yeah, because discussion. If you're a man or whatever you identify as, what gender, you should be concerned about this, of course. And I think we are now actually we made a campaign some years ago, just a campaign about it with some funny videos, which got positive feedback, both from a conservative priest, from a left-wing feminist, and a tabloid newspaper editor. So they were all liked it.
You were like...
But that was just a campaign. And I think now we are actually trying to do a similar trial as they did in the Game Changers. We're having some Danish athletes do it. So our hope is that we can show some similar results and get it in national television in Denmark. Because sometimes you need... Seeing an American movie is not the same. You want someone speaking your own language to say they have this similar experience in their bodies.
And is it like 10 people, 10 athletes going plant-based, 10 not eating plant-based?
No, the same person eating different meals and different times. But then we are even trying, instead of just making the meat exactly the same, we are also trying to make some of them, I think 5 of 10 of them will be having shawarma, a pizza with shawarma, or a pizza bread with kebab or shawarma in it, and the others will have it with falafel, because that's a more common thing of what you will have in the street in nighttime, and especially if you're out by night partying and you want a date to bring her home afterwards or something like that. So that's also
you are doing like a real case study.
So we are curious to see what the results will be, but it's my colleagues who are, by the way, 1 PhD in nutrition and 2 clinical dietitians who are doing this experiment. So they're health people.
We will hope that the tides of news will come to Finland, and Finnish men will be like, we have to follow the Danish way of eating plant-based, and we will get our erections back if they are 40s and struggling.
But that's, I think, the erection thing is a way to get attention.
Yes,
but
of course.
But what I like about it is it's one of the only examples where you actually have a very, very immediate effect on your body on a single meal, and where you can actually measure it in a very vulnerable part of your body. And that's what I like. It's so pedagogical. It's such a good way to educate people about some basic functions about the blood vessel.
And your campaign is a perfect way to kind of break through common barriers. Like you come from a little bit like people see the funniness and kind of joke angle, and your guards are not on. This is not they have heard all the arguments and they're like, titty. But when these arguments come, they're like, I didn't expect this. And then they're like, whoa, quite funny.
But also I think, in these times where everyone is talking about, getting the army against the possible war in the future. Well, I'm really I don't like all that rhetoric, but if we should be, ready for war, then you need healthy people.
Wow. Yes.
We cannot have people who have conditions of heart disease in their bodies, who have bad blood vessel functioning, how will you ever defend yourself against?
Rune, I think we need to get you on Joe Rogan, and you'll be the vegan penis man, and 50% of Joe Rogan fans will be vegan in one day. But I have a fantastic commercial idea. We at Viral Vegans need to do is to showcase two people with in just underwear, and then how do you know someone is vegan? You'll see it.
You'll see. Yeah. Okay, thanks so much. I think this was a lovely ending, and maybe you have been talking in an event here in Finland to really leading politicians in Finland, and you have tried to encourage us to follow the plant-based action plan in Finland. So maybe as a brother country, you can tell your greetings to the Finnish people, and what should we do and why we should follow your footsteps.
Well, thank you so much. And I do want to say your selection here is, I've heard that you have much better selection in the supermarkets. And that's a big problem we have in Denmark. We have too many supermarkets. So each supermarket on average is quite small. So we actually have a problem with the selection in supermarkets.
We will help you with that, hopefully.
So we need help with that. Yes. Thank you so much for your work.
Thank you so much, and have a lovely trip back home.
Thank you.